Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Marketing Mediator. As you know, in Marketing Mediator, we are on a mission to untangle the whole maze of marketing, advertising, communication, and a lot of other things which go in between. In today's episode, I have somebody right from Indonesia, Ajay. Welcome to the show.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm very, very glad to be here. Very excited about this conversation.
Yeah, Ajay. So basically, as you know, that I've also been working in experience, customer experience, and commerce from quite a few years, and I'm really excited because finally I have somebody who is similar to me, and today I can ask you like questions about what is the role of experience and all that stuff. So before we get into details, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and talk about how did you get into the whole world of marketing and advertising in first place?
Sure. So like the last couple of guests that you've had, my starting point is also engineering. Uh,
All of us.
uh, I did electronics engineering. I think I've always had some lots of curiosity over towards technology, which is what led me towards the engineering degree in the first place. Now, a critical part in my life was that the placement SEM, which is the crazy SEM that everyone keeps thinking about, that was the time of the global recession for me. So, whereas what we were prepared for, interviews and mock interviews and question answers, CV writing, etc., what was happening to us was every day we would go to office, we would go to college, and the office boy would come in and strike out a name of a potential recruiter because they were not hiring anymore because of what was happening all around. Uh, my mom actually gave me good advice. She just said, just like take some time off. It's okay. You
Mhm.
don't need to. If there are no jobs, you don't need to jump into a job. So actually, like counter to how most people, and this is where I find myself very lucky. Counter to how most people have their start. My start immediately after college was just taking a 6 month break. Really enjoyed writing, reading. So I was just writing some poems and um, looking around. I spent a little bit of time in my friend's commodities trading firm. I spent a little bit of time doing door to door selling.
Mhm.
Eventually, a friend introduced me to this one company called Ware City. Ware City doesn't exist anymore. But Ware City at the time was a direct competitor to a relatively unknown company back then called Zomato.
Wow.
Zomato had just started the same year as Ware City had started. And again, at this time, both these companies were unknown because the big player at the time was Just Dial, and getting
Yeah.
all your information from phone numbers and
It was like yellow
calling.
pages,
Yeah, yeah.
electronic digital yellow pages.
Correct. So you call the Just Dial helpline. There'll be a person on the other side who will give you the address of the restaurant you're looking for. Was the technology innovation, and City was trying to change it all by having an online digital directory. And a part of my job was to go to restaurants and do like these 150 word write ups about them. And again at that time I would get paid by the word, and the more views your write up got, the more number of restaurants you got to go to. So that made me very curious because I wanted to go to more restaurant. I wanted to try more food across Mumbai. So then I started finding ways of how can I get my articles viewed more. I went online and started searching, which led me to discovery of this thing called as there used to be this thing earlier called DMOS, DMOS
Mhm.
library. DMOS library was a shared library between Rediff, Yahoo, Google, and similar search engines, which was basically a repository of all pages online. And all of these different search engines, this is way back, like uh,
Mhm.
probably 13, 14 years ago. They would all tap into Demos library and then rank their pages
Yeah.
accordingly. So I realized, okay, if I register my specific articles there, then the chances of them showing up on all these platforms will be higher. Hence, maybe people will click on them more and stuff like that. So I started doing that for all my articles. One day, the CEO, Akhil, got called me. He was very pissed off. He's like, "You're doing something, you're cheating." So I said, "Why am I cheating?" So he's like, "Why are your articles getting more visits than everyone else's? They are going to better places." And I was just going to all the roadside kebab shops, and because like that's the kind of food I wanted to have. So then I told him about this. I told him about Demos library, etc., etc. So he's like, "Okay, fine. This sounds interesting. What more do you want to do?" So again, back then, it was a new thing for anyone for businesses to have a Facebook page. So I
Mhm.
told him probably we should have a Facebook page. Again, back then, Facebook had Facebook tabs, and engineering had given me enough background on how to do CSS, how to do HTML. So I started,
So you could use tabs and basic
yeah,
apps, use
yeah.
iframes and all that stuff.
Yeah, correct. So I started importing iframes into Facebook tabs and started creating visibility again, which led to more visits. Blogger.com was a big thing, so I set up a blog page for City. All of it was like traffic driving initiatives, which was a very interesting thing to do. And again, at the same time, it was balanced with meeting real people. Like there's this old place called Surti Barahandi in Mohammad Ali Road in
Mhm.
Mumbai. It was made the small restaurant was started in 1934, right? So I sat with this old chacha there and explained to him what the internet is, how him being present there would help to bring people to his restaurant, stuff like that. So I think that balance of real world implication with tech set up that foundation. Now, from there, the next step after it was I worked in another company called Tech Shastra. Tech Shastra was like it had about 60 front end back end developers, and then there were people like me who did like everything from I had the owner's credit cards. I was running ads, I was
Mhm.
writing copy, I was creating reports, I was replying to comments. But again, at this stage, the scale changed because their clients were Pepsodent and
Mhm.
Surf Excel and Nescafe, and suddenly this world of brand marketing opened up.
Mhm.
From there, my real trial by fire and understanding of the entire world of brand and marketing happened when I entered Ogilvy. I've been in Ogilvy for 10 years now,
Mhm.
but my
Wow.
starting point was Ogilvy Mumbai. And in Ogilvy Mumbai, again, I sort of stumbled my way around everywhere. I was in Ogilvy PR for a while. I was in social at Ogilvy for a while. I did strategy for a while, brand strategy for a while. I now eventually all these years later, I am heading the CX business for Ogilvy Indonesia. So within Ogilvy, what I understood was the value of storytelling, was the value of creating an emotional connection, was the value of authenticity, and how if you are able to use that and if you are able to be really genuine, how you can start making impact into the lives of people. So sort of I don't think I've had a straight this is my ambition and hence A to B. Rather I've sort of moved all around and tried to find what works for me.
Mhm.
But technology has been that, if I were to call that one single red thread across everything I've done, that's technology.
Super interesting. I love your whole story because my story is very similar to you, right? I did my engineering, then I got into Accenture, but I realized no, I'm not going to go do coding. Then I did my MBA, worked in TCS for a while, and then I started my own blog, did
Hmm.
some gigs, and then I entered basically a startup, and
Hmm.
that startup was basically doing Facebook apps, a
Hmm.
lot of front end and back end developers, and then I started doing all that stuff because I've always been primarily into business.
Hmm.
But working in startups taught me that sometimes you need to use your coding skills, like you,
Hmm.
sometimes your writing skills, being the
Hmm.
community manager, running the ads. It's amazing, right? The things you learn. Cool. Now let's get into the whole details, right? Since
Mhm.
you have found your way to CX, right, to experience. Now, when I ask you this question, I want you to be very sharp because a lot of people, this is a topic which needs a lot of clarity. How do you define CX? How do you define
Mhm.
customer experience in context of marketing?
Mhm. Okay. So there is this quote I read a while back, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just stayed with me because of its the simplicity and the clarity of it. There's this person called Bridget Van Lingen.
Mm-hmm.
She's the senior VP at IBM.
Mm-hmm.
What she said is that the last best experience that anyone has anywhere becomes the bare minimum expectation for experiences that they
Absolutely.
want everywhere, right? Uh, I think that to me is the base definition of what CX is. What that means is that the seamlessness with which you are finding things on Google search
Mhm.
becomes the expectation that consumers will have when they are searching for something on your brand's website. The
Anything for that
seamless,
matter. Like this is my last experience, so I expect wherever I'm doing research on, especially on a digital interface, I expect it to be like Google. Yeah.
correct. Yeah, correct.
Mhm.
I expect autofill. I expect that I will get things that are most relevant on the top, things like
Mhm.
that. All of this, right? And why should they not, right? The same thing goes for content discovery too, right? Now,
Mhm.
I am used to, like in a world of TikTok, where I am just using my thumb to flick through from one piece of content to another, where I'm scanning, and I have built this behavior of scanning. I I expect an email to be as seamless too. I expect my email to give me enough information that I'm able to scan through it and give me the most important bits.
For sure.
And then I will decide within my first 3 seconds, just like how I'm going to decide whether I'm going to watch the rest of the TikTok. I'm going to decide whether I'm going to read the rest of the email too. Right.
Mhm.
So I think in its simplest form, I feel that CX is about removing friction and
Mhm.
removing pain points that exist between the path that a consumer has to take in terms of interacting with a brand, right?
Mhm.
So whether that is how they are able to find your brand, how they are experiencing your brand on a website, how they are interacting with a brand, maybe on WhatsApp, maybe on email. The
Mhm.
focus in terms of CX needs to be that how can I reduce friction, how can I reduce pain points, how can I make things easy for consumers. Now, in order to do that, then you will have all the different technology that is available, that you start to bring in.
No,
Yeah.
I love that answer because it is precise, and I kind of agree with it because you talk about, I mean, CX is what it is today because of thanks to digital and thanks to technology that I as a consumer can interact with it, right? And that gives you the ability to give you this frictionless experience. Cool. Now my second question is, uh, like you and me, we work in the world of primarily like marketing or a subset of marketing, which is advertising, and all of us, our primary objective is to grow brands. So the way you explain CX, how does it play a role in growing brands?
Hmm. Okay. So I might have a controversial point of view here, but
I
I
love
personally.
that's why we are having the show, man. Go for it.
So see, I think there is this prevailing notion in our industry that we need to focus only on consumers that are on the most final stage of purchase, and
Shopper
then
marketing in
yeah, shopper marketing, bottom funnel marketing,
yeah,
funnel
whatever you
hacking.
call
There
it.
are 100,000 names. I think every day there is some guru who comes up with a new name for it, right? And what that has done is, like, we everything is now tactic oriented, right?
Mhm.
That how can I improve this efficiency of step two of this funnel to step three by 2.3%, right? Now, while that is important, what that is resulting in is diminishing differentiation, diminishing the distinctiveness, reduction of saliency. Because again, in I read this just this morning, in a world where all brands are beige, being the beigest brand makes you disappear, not stand out more,
So
right?
so
So personally, I think in the world of today, honestly, if you ask me, bottom funnel doesn't exist. It's just not
Mhm.
there, right? Because take for example a live streaming session on Shopee, right? You can go through the entire marketing funnel of no discovering a brand, understanding what it does, how it's used, what its how do you say RTB is, who is using it, and then buy it all in one go, rate that app, leave a review. So you've gone from awareness, consideration, purchase,
Everything.
advocacy in just one piece of content,
Mhm.
right? So every single interaction with a brand is in fact a full funnel in itself, which is why
Absolutely.
I think that bottom funnel doesn't exist. And if bottom funnel doesn't exist, and if every experience is a full funnel in itself, then hence we go back to our basics of brand building, right? Hence, if going back to your question of how do I see how can I help brands grow? I think largely the role starts with being strategic, understanding what are the needs of a specific business within
Mhm.
the category, within a competitive landscape, what is happening at a larger consumer level, what is a cultural presence or a cultural behavior that is happening in a specific market.
Mhm.
Uh, my role is also creative because again, just understanding enough that much doesn't mean that there's a consumer who's willing to just part with their money. You
Yeah.
need to then make sure how that is emotionally meaningful, and then at the same time it's also technical because all of this technology is the thing that is going to help to drive personalized experiences, that is going to reduce the friction that I was earlier talking about, that is going to drive that long term impact, right? So in terms of within the larger marketing canvas, I think that's where things are. Yeah, I think it's when we are looking at CX and brand growth, it would be like how you would plan your marketing anyway. You
Yeah.
would start with your fundamental issues, you would start with your fundamental objective,
Mhm.
you would start with your ambition, and then from there draw a roadmap of where you want to go, and then start sort of plugging in technology at every stage.
No, I love that answer, Ajay. Very nicely explained. I think the way you were explaining and the confusion which is existing in the market is primarily because of this, and I would say it is because of digital. The way you explained, right? So fundamentals of brand building have not changed, right? Like you rightly said, you have to grab attention. You need to have shared values. You need to have missions. Otherwise, nobody would notice you. But what has happened is that now, like you said, every time I do an interaction with a piece of content, it has the ability to complete my journey right after purchase, because gone are the days when TV was only doing awareness and then you would hope he would come to the supermarket and then I will do shopper marketing or I will do an activation in the stadium and all that stuff. So that's nicely explained. I think that is the biggest difference right now. Okay, going on. Now, another thing is that now CX itself has evolved into a very complex ecosystem in itself. So when I talk about CX, you might have a lot of different specialized people working in your team, right? So you will have people who are design thinkers, for example. They might be solving big problems, doing workshops. You have people who are doing user experience, right? Then you have UI people, you have visual designers. You also work with developers, product managers. So there's a whole lot of specializations. So tell us how they kind of come together to provide like an exceptional experience for a brand.
Mhm. See, so I mean, when we are working with our with all the different clients here, we use a very simple three-step method.
Hmm.
It's think, create, realize. Yeah.
Hmm.
And these are the steps in which we generally form a solution. Now, what do I mean by that? Think meaning that's the place where you want to look at data, maybe look at social listening, maybe look at Google Analytics, maybe look at open rates, click-through rates, media performance, stuff like that. That's the place where you're going to get all the insights. That's the place where you're going to probably discover something is not working the way that it should, or something is really working well but not being paid attention to. It's
Mm-hmm.
the place where generally all of your how do you say where the neurons in your head are going to start getting fired. Now at this place, like a data analyst will start to come in, will start to maybe build a dashboard, understand, point out certain things, right? Now, after think, the next step is create. Now, create
Mm-hmm.
is where, again, whether it your development of your large scale strategy. Now,
Mm-hmm.
at this strategy as well as in the think phase, the part that I spoke about earlier, which is understanding the business issue, understanding the ambition, understanding what the objectives are, have to be fed in. But
Mm-hmm.
when you have that, you can sort of develop what are the different nudges that you want to give to your consumer, what are the different consumer journeys that you want to hence create. Bring all that together to have sort of a holistic CX strategy, which is where you would have a CRM strategist or a CX strategist, sort of a UX researcher coming in to sort of uh, build a part of what the vision of the solution that
Mm-hmm.
you want to design, right? So that's the create part. And then you have realize. Now, realize is where you bring in UI design, you start to develop use cases, you start to talk about technology development, you start to talk about implementation. And again, this is where you would have the UI designers, front end, back end developers, project managers come in. Now, the critical part is that this is all cyclical in nature, right? The
Mm-hmm.
moment you are at realized stage doesn't mean that done. I can go to sleep now,
Yeah.
because the while you are in realized stage, the think part needs to continue, right? You still
Mm-hmm.
need to keep looking at your analytics, keep
Absolutely.
observing the performance. As you're doing that, the create part again kicks back, because
Correct.
basis what is happening now, do I need to change my journey? Do I need to change my nudge? And if yes, again the realize part comes back in, that hence I this is the way in which my UI needs to change, or this is the way in which the front end needs to change, or there's a new back end feature that I need to get added, which is how all of it I feel is cyclical, where you have think, create, and realize working together. Now, this, I think, what more and more us as an industry we need to foster is this mindset where everyone needs to work together, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone needs to rely on each other. Analyst needs to be interested and needs to be talking to the backend developer to understand what is
Mm-hmm.
he doing, right? UI designer needs to be sitting with someone who is developing a consumer journey and asking questions. Why is this way? Why is that way? Uh, the moment everyone is in silos, that's the moment this cyclical nature breaks. That's the moment everything starts working in blocks, right? And there is enough and more research and data out there to show that the more integrated things are, the better it is in terms of media performance, the better it is in terms of analytics, and then there
Effectiveness,
are,
right?
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and consequently also sort of there is a impact on bottom line, on sales, on profitability increasing.
Yeah. No, I love that again because I think the key takeaway from the way you were explaining it is I would kind of highlight, it being an iterative process or a circular process, because what has happened is that whether you're talking about brand teams, traditional marketing teams, or you're talking about agencies, we were very used to work in a linear way, right? Because it's all projects and deliverables, or rather, I should say, outputs. So you have a process of a briefing, then there is strategy, then there is creative, and then it goes to production, right? And after production, it's kind of finished because now the thing goes live. Because let's say it's a film or a TV, I cannot possibly do iterations. Key difference, right? The way you explained it, if you are trying to work with a team or your internal team or an external team, if you are a brand, this is what you need to understand. And this is
Mhm,
something which you don't have to explain to a company which is D2C or digital first, or they have a
mhm,
technology
mhm,
product.
mhm, mhm,
Only people who are working in traditional
mhm.
brands need to understand this, that
Yeah,
this
yeah,
cannot be like a linear process. It's like
yeah,
always on continuous
yeah,
improvement.
yeah.
Awesome. Let's get into further, right? Like one more step. Now because it is an iterative process. Uh, my question is that how do you kind of explain ROI, right? And to make it simpler, let me give you one example. Let's say brand A comes to you and the business problem is declining market shares, right? Because of the new age consumer, there is no enough, brand love and all that stuff. That is how business problems or brand problems comes to an agency. Now you are going to work on a solution the way you explained it, right? There has to be a thinking process where analysts are working, and there has to be a creation process, and then it needs to feedback. Now, if that process is iterative and somebody has given you a brief, how and at what stage would you tell client that what is the expected ROI of this whole project?
See, so I mean, this is a very critical conversation. I think a
Mhm,
lot of, uh, and I think this is a conversation that has been going on for a very, very long time.
mhm,
I was at the start telling you about working on Pepsodent and Nescafe,
mhm,
and this is way back in 2011, 2010. Even back then, there were questions being asked that what is the ROI of being on Facebook, right? I think it's a very fair and an extremely important conversation to be had, right? Now, I think when you are looking at ROI needs to be looked at in time horizon, right?
mhm,
What I mean by that is, how is this initiative, when it comes to customer experience, going to help my brand and business for years to come?
mhm.
How is it going to help my brand and business within the next quarter? And
Absolutely.
how is it going to help me right now? How is it going to help me drive overnight sales, right?
Mhm,
All of these different time horizons are extremely critical. The metrics and measures, however, for all three have to be different,
mhm,
right? So when you look at metrics and measures for overnight sales, then those would be your gross margin value, click-through rate, stuff like that, that is happening maybe on your official store on a marketplace or maybe on your own D2C website.
mhm,
However, when you look at it from a quarterly perspective, that's the place to think about how do you say, your market share impact and contribution of a particular channel to your overall sales, right?
mhm,
So has the has the um, has the contribution coming from marketplaces, or has the contribution coming from an online to offline
mhm,
campaign that you are running? Is the pie of it, has it increased this quarter compared to the last quarter?
mhm,
And then when you look at years, that's the time you would address brand love, you would address how consumers look at your brand, stuff like that, right? Now, again, all of this kid, like this is not necessarily hard and fast rules. Sometimes certain brands will also run, how do you say, brand measurement campaigns via brand print and other such tools online for a quarterly campaign as well. Depends
True.
on how much your
Short-term kind
budgets
of
are. Yeah,
work.
correct. Now the thing is that uh, there is this research report from McKinsey that they looked at growth patterns for about 100 brands and saw that brands that focused on long-term customer relationship
Mhm,
were growing their revenue two times faster than brands that did,
mhm,
right? Now, in this world of today, this extremely volatile, uncertain world of today that we are living in, we don't have the liberty of saying, okay, I'm just growing brand, that's enough.
of course.
Uh, there is, you need to show bottom line impact, right?
Mhm,
And it's this bottom line impact planning that needs to happen across all of these different time horizons.
mhm,
So when it comes to talking to clients about return on investment of their marketing campaigns coming from CX, I think that's the way to go about it, to look at it from different horizons, identify what are relevant metrics,
Yeah.
wherever available through certain means. Maybe it's also possible to identify industry benchmark and then try and set ambitious KPIs that maybe you try and exceed them, maybe you try and match them, stuff like that, and then start to make a roadmap that way. But the critical thing being that just saying that, okay, I only want overnight sales, I don't care about what is
Mhm.
happening in the long term, is not going to help, because it's only going to force you towards making tactical decisions. And in the long run, your brand will end up losing distinctiveness, will end up losing saliency in the mind of consumers.
No, I kind of agree, right? Because what I found useful, just to add to what you have said, right? I find there is like Forrester has this model called total economic impact, which I can tend to use a lot. This only works, I think, more for long-term projects, like you were saying. So if you are trying to work on an experience transformation project and you're lucky enough to have a horizon of 2 years or 3 years, like you said, right, the investments are kind of divided into 2 or 3 years. It clearly tells you that
Hello?
what kind of upfront investments are going to go in 6 months and 1 year. When exactly do you start seeing some kind of returns? At what period, probably after a year or 2 years, you get your money back, which was invested, and then probably what is that time in the future where it starts giving positive ROIs. But it helps because everybody is involved. It's not
Mhm.
just marketing. There is CEO involved, there is finance involved, procurement involved. You take sign off from everybody that these are the short term things, these are the long term things. We have governance in place to track all the KPIs, like you mentioned, whether they are on business. I mean, usually people only care about business at high level. They don't care about brand and small campaign metrics. But I mean, there are tools like you explained to work on it.
Mhm.
Cool. Let's move ahead, Ajay. Uh, Now I want you to tell me about an. We have already discussed that. I will not go into that. That a D2C or a digital company uses customer experience itself as its competitive advantage. It uses UX, for example, itself as point of differentiation. Like all the today's brands are doing it. They don't think like traditional brands that, oh, I need to have a brand, I need to have a differentiation. Experience itself is a differentiation. When we come to a traditional kind of company, right, a company which has, let's say, 90% sales coming in from physical stores and stuff like that, can you give me an example of how they are using this whole customer experience and gaining some benefit from it?
So, see, I can talk about the work that I've done.
Mm-hmm.
We work with this brand, YS26. It's a infant nutrition brand.
Mm-hmm.
Now, originally, we received this brief for a gift with purchase.
Mm-hmm.
It was a task.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we started looking at it, and when we did our competitor review, everyone was doing a gift with purchase.
Mm-hmm.
Some were giving like Tupperware, some were giving shampoo bottles, things like that, right?
Toys and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah, that's category norm, right? Now, generally, this brand stands for nurturing exceptional kids. It
Mm-hmm.
helps, and that's how all of it works. It helps to develop brain synapses, and there's a lot of very beautiful, complex research, and there's a very strong reason why consumers are attracted to it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what we decided to do is bring some of that authenticity, scientific thinking into this gift with purchase, right? So, hence, instead of giving one more branded Tupperware box, what we decided to build was a AR coloring book. Now,
Mm-hmm.
this was a physical coloring book that you could get along with a can of the product. Now, when you got it, you could sit down with your kid, scan the book with your phone, and the kid could color it in. Now, what the kid was coloring was 26 different professions. So there's astronaut and chef and being a doctor. So in that process, it's also sort of this bonding moment between the mom and the kid,
Mm-hmm.
inspiring the kid about all these different things that he or she can become in the future,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, the critical piece here is that this coloring book was largely focused on and sold via their online marketplace, right?
Hmm.
So there is a differentiated value proposition that the consumer is getting for buying this product, which she would normally buy from a mini market or a supermarket.
Hmm.
But why should she buy from a marketplace? And the brand's official store was that if she bought from there, she's getting this additional access to inspire her child to set sort of these dreams for the future within the child, right?
Hmm.
Now, in this scenario, how do you say? Uh, by using this core brand proposition of nurturing the exceptional within children
Yeah,
and bringing it alive through this means of the coloring book, and then making sure that the marketplace is the singular place in which he gets it.
where you get this? Yeah.
Yeah, we were able to sort of create that experience for generally a brand that relies very heavily on supermarkets, very heavily on mini markets, things like that.
No, that's a very cool idea, and the reason I want to highlight this is that this is exactly what differentiates if you work with a creative agency with the
Hmm.
CX capabilities versus you working with a pure play, e-commerce company. Because I've
Hmm.
seen this time and again. Because they do not think about experience or they do not think about human motivations. If you're working with an e-commerce team, they think everything is transactional. Oh,
Hmm.
I am giving this shampoo, I am giving a better toy, right? But the fact is, only an agency could think as much as you just explained, right? Because it is not about just a transaction. It is a
Yeah.
transaction. But if you can add that emotional layer, that emotional experience, right? You might not have even spent more money than that e-commerce guy, right, who was doing a transactional stuff. But the kind of bond you are making, you're doing your business challenge, you are making an emotional connect, and chances are that you are also buying a very loyal customer through this promotion or GWP. So that is why I love this point that only agencies can do it.
Yeah. No, see, I think there is a very disturbing pattern to me personally that I'm seeing where we are actively training consumers to become promo hunters on e-commerce. And it just doesn't make sense because now see, like I said, I've spent a decade in Ogilvy and I've seen the amount of microscopic attention that gets put on a brand
Mhm.
everywhere else, right? You will debate and research and find the best version of every single word, think about every dot and dash. But then on e-commerce, you just like slap a 25% off, you put
I
your
hate it.
SKU and you're done. Like, come on. What like I just it's so surprising to me that how can these two exact opposite truths exist within one single business at the same time?
No, I completely agree. And I think you would love one of the episodes which I'm going to release in coming weeks, where I have somebody from my e-commerce team, like an e-commerce director. Uh, but he understands both the worlds, like, we are
Hmm.
trying to talk. But he
Hmm.
explains that how primarily the e-commerce brands, which are now grown really big, how do they think? And
Hmm.
he explains very nicely that, do not underestimate them
Hmm.
just because they don't do the work like you guys do, which is, very human level, human
Hmm.
connect and all that stuff. They also do the same thing, but the perspective is slightly different. I will not
Hmm.
get into the details because I think that is the meat of my upcoming episode, but it's a
Sure,
great
sure,
discussion to be.
sure,
Okay,
sure.
Ajay, let me change gears and this time is time for like rapid fire round. So
Okay,
I'll ask you like a couple of questions. Give me quick
sure, sure,
answers, yeah?
sure.
Okay, so what's your favorite book on, let's say, customer experience?
Uh, See, this book was written when customer experience wasn't a word.
Hmm.
Uh, but I think it's very relevant. There's this book that David Ogilvy wrote. It's called The Eternal Pursuit of Unhappiness.
Yeah.
Being very good is no good. You have to be very, 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 very good.
Hmm.
I end up reading that book 2 to 3 times a year. It
Wow.
just helps to set fundamental things right about how, and it's a short book, it's like 25 pages or
Yeah.
so. It talks about just pushing yourself to think harder, looking at your consumer as they were your wife and giving that much respect and being scared of him or her as much as you would be of your wife. There are some very, very beautiful basic fundamentals that apply to CX or any other X in the future that this would become.
Nice. Because I also sometimes we forget this. I remember I used to have this chemistry teacher who used to make you stand in the middle of the class and ask you to solve like a very difficult equation of resonance or something like that. But he would not let you sit, and he would say that it's okay if you can't do it. Why don't whenever in trouble, go back to basics. He
Hmm,
will make you go back to the
hmm,
basics. Like he will
hmm,
talk about electrons, neutrons, valency,
hmm,
and all that stuff, and he'll make you solve it. So it's
hmm,
good that everybody should have a go-to book or whatever it is. You
hmm.
should read it every year, and I love that you do it. Okay, next one. What's your favorite brand of all time?
My favorite brand, largely because of the experiences I've had with this brand, there's this taxi company here in Indonesia called Bluebird.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the moment you land into Jakarta, probably the Bluebird driver is the first person, your first interaction that you're going to have with any Indonesian person, and their drivers are known for their politeness. They are known for their helping kind nature. I have seen how the company has evolved in their way of using technology because they used to have infrared based dashboard thing where you could give a SMS based unique code, and then that would get a taxi reserved. And now they have this app that does the same thing. Recently, when their new CEO joined, became a taxi driver for a couple of days and actually ferried
Mm-hmm.
people around, right? So this level of it starts from the core of their brand, that being helpful and being kind to people, and how that is integrated into their drivers, integrated into their service, integrated into every single brand experience that you would have. That's what makes it, I think, I this the level at which they managed to pull it off and the scale at which they managed to pull it off, hands down, it's
Your
one of my
favorite
favorite
brand?
brands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Last one. So I asked you about brand. Now I want you to kind of tell me what you said while explaining CX, right? The last best experience. So I'm not talking
Mhm.
about a brand. I'm talking about what was the last experience, like the best experience which you remember right now.
I think Google Maps, yeah. Uh, Google Maps, because not because of the giving you location and stuff like that. I have been a reviewer on Google Maps. So I've been leaving, like uploading photographs and leaving ratings of places, answering questions whether vegetarian food is allowed somewhere, whether parking is available, whether a certain type of diesel is available. Now,
Mm-hmm.
what they have been doing is very regularly, I will get an email saying this review that you posted helped 2,500 people,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Oh yeah.
And at the same time, I am now at a level 6 reviewer. I'm
Oh
some
wow.
5 reviews away from becoming level 7. But then there is this relationship where I can see that there's an emotional benefit that I'm getting.
Mm-hmm.
There's this sense of achievement that I'm getting, that yes, it's not just me saying good, bad to someone. Me posting things is actually helping real people. I'm seeing how it's helping real people. But at the same time, there's also a sense of achievement to going through all of these different levels, unlocking things. And again, a while back, I also unlocked becoming a beta tester for one of their new launching products and stuff like that. So yeah, very, very
Awesome.
cool.
Awesome. I really like that answer because I don't do it as much as you are saying. But when you were saying, that email, I always remember, I love getting that email, 500 people, you help
Yeah,
500 people and all that stuff. It's
yeah,
a great experience.
yeah.
Cool. I think we are running out of time. Ajay, it was a pleasure talking to you. Like I said, I was really looking forward to this because I really want people to know the role of experience. And in a context of marketing and advertising, because maybe we did not articulate it like this, but like you were explaining, advertisers, people who work in marketing and in the world of brands, we have been thinking about experiences right from the beginning. Maybe technology has changed the meaning of experience itself or the way it is described or defined right now. But no matter what you talk about, whether it is technology, fundamentally the technology is interacting with the humans, right? And we are very emotional people, right? So I think it's very, very important. And I really like the way you've explained it. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It was a very, very fun conversation too. I completely like there's quite a bit that you mentioned, especially the Forrester model that I'm also going to go and look up. So very excited. Like I shared with you before, that I've followed your previous sessions. I look forward to more. Thank you so much for running this too.
Awesome. And guys, before we sign off, if you like the conversation, please do not forget to like, subscribe, and share the marketing video. Thank you very much. Thanks, Ajay.
Thank you. Thank you.